Hey, welcome back to my 3-part series where I evolve my fan-made starter Pokemon. Yeah, I don't have a quip this time. So 3 months ago, I made a video where I redesigned my old Fakemon starter trio from my fangame concept called Pokemon Fable. And more recently, I went back to that trio and decided to redesign their evolutions. I've done that for 2 of these starters, the Grass-type Crestfist and the Fire-type Sylphern. And if you haven't watched those videos, then be sure to check them out. But today, we're talking about the Water-type starter, Dewfin, who's the one exception to my starter trio. Or what do I mean by exception? Well, when I first designed these starters in 2022, Dewfin didn't actually exist. The original Water-type starter was a jellyfish named Jelaqua, but they didn't feel enough like a starter Pokemon to me. So when I redesigned this trio, I came up with a new Water starter, and that's how we went from a jellyfish to a newt. But don't worry about Jelaqua, I fully intend to redesign her too, just not as a starter. We'll just have to wait and see. Dewfin took me a long time to settle on a good concept for, but I think the end result was worth it. Silly little guy, I love him! And in terms of the evolution, well, I kind of need to explain the theme first. Ever since Gen 4, starter trios have had a unifying theme with their final stages, and for my starter trio, that theme is different genres of stories. Crestfist has an action anime theme, Sylphern has a crime theme, and Dewfin has a fantasy theme. I had the mental image of a great big dragon guarding a huge stash of treasure in their lair. A classic fantasy trope, only this time, the dragon's a newt. And I was especially excited to try that out with the type combo I had in mind, Water Electric. Why did I make them Water Electric? I don't know, just for the vibes. But yeah, I think that's enough preamble. Let's start with the first evolution. So the second stage of this line is Salevin. The name comes from salamander, because it's a water salamander, and levin, which is an archaic English word for lightning. Also yeah, that does mean all 3 starters have a middle stage that starts with the letter S. Kind of a funny coincidence. So I decided that Dewfin was going to be a water electric type pretty much right from the start. I really just liked the idea and I thought it was a fun type, not much more to say. Granted, I did find a thematic link later on, but we'll get there in the final stage. So going into this, I had a solid idea for what the final stage would be, and I designed the middle stage last so I could find the right in-between. Going from a tiny little newt to a big old dragon is pretty drastic after all. But while I wanted Salevin to bridge the gap, I also wanted him to be very different from the other 2 stages. Like this is the Dewfin line's edgy phase or something. Starting with the shape, I made Salevin long and thin with these lanky arms. And I decided that he'd stand up on his hind legs. And I know what you guys are going to say, but put down your water guns. We're only going bipedal for the middle stage. But let's get back on topic. I wanted to give Salevin more of a dragon-like head, because that's the direction we're taking them in. I gave them more yellow fins to fit with the new electric type, and I changed the blue of the body to be a lot more saturated. I wanted the final stage to have the same colours as the first stage, so giving the second stage something different was a must for variety. And I don't really have much else to say here, so I guess I'll throw in a few quick thoughts I've had with this redesigning project. While I have been trying to draw in a Sugimori-like style, I think it's slipping a bit more towards my personal style. That's definitely most notable with the thicker outlines, because the Pokemon style has pretty thin lines. Also, I definitely think I need to be referencing official Pokemon art more often. I was mostly going off of my own art as references for these evolutions, but it would have helped with proportions and style if I pulled up some existing Pokemon to look at. That's especially true with Salevin in the final stage, since I'm designing them from scratch. And yeah, I know I don't have to follow the Pokemon art style exactly, it'd probably be easier for me to stick to my own style. But I do want these designs to feel like Pokemon, at least in the proportions and design conventions and stuff. I think that doing a style study is a good move to make sure I don't lose sight of what I'm going for, especially with just how many concepts I've come up with. Like, wow, that's a lot of potential future videos. But that's enough rambling from me, isn't it? Let's take a look at that Pokedex. Salevin, the sea lizard Pokemon. Salevin absorb water with their fins and convert it into electricity, which can then be blasted in a forceful wave. They are hoarders by nature, usually seen collecting gold and gemstones, and are extremely protective over their hoard. Even touching a coin will anger them. Common imagery shows Salevin coiled in a circle around a rock, looming over the treasure that they protect. Salevin evolves from Jufin at level 18. So that's Salevin, and I don't have much to say really. I definitely like the design, there's just nothing I can really add to it. Also, this was a complete coincidence, but I feel like on top of the lizard, newt and dragon influence, the type and the long body makes me think of electric eels. Which hey, I love electric eels, so that's a win in my books. Alright, we've made it to the final stage of the Jufin line, Ohlmander. And this is one of my favourite names I've come up with for a Pokemon, but for once I won't get into the name origin just yet, because it needs a bit more build up. The vision was pretty clear from the start, just a big beefy salamander dragon. But like, kind of a cute and friendly one, despite his size. The 3 starters have pretty clear personalities in their first stages, and I wanted to keep them all intact for the final stages. At least more or less. And while making the concept in my sketchbook, I had the idea of having a massive fin protrude from the back. That was specifically inspired by the males of the southern banded newt. And I think it's a good progression from Jufin having a really tiny fin on their back. I don't know, it's just fun seeing design elements evolve like that. Also, remember how I mentioned a thematic link with the electric type? Well, while I was planning this design, I remembered a certain someone from Norse mythology. And you'll have to forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation, but I'm talking about Jormungandr, the sea serpent that encircles the world. And the world serpent is known to be the enemy of Thor, the god of thunder, which is where the electric type comes in. That link was precisely what I needed to add some flavour to Ohlmander. Not that all Pokemon need some big mythological inspiration, but I think it makes sense for a final stage starter. With that in mind, I did try making the tail into a hammer as an homage to Thor, but it just wasn't working out. So I decided to save the hammering thing for the Pokedex lore. But still, I loved this mythological link that I found. Also, because of the whole serpent encircling the world theme, I also added a bit of Ouroboros inspiration to Salevin, mostly with the ring pattern on the chest, and a small allusion in their Pokedex entry. Now, by the time I finished this recording, I had a few gripes with the art, mostly because the eyes were uncanny and the open mouth was too derpy. So I went back and changed them. I also added some teeth and a spike to the chin, to make him feel more like a powerful final stage. But I didn't record any of this, so here's a quick side-by-side. But getting back to the Pokemon, I think it's time to explain the name origin for Ohlmander. The name comes from salamander, of course, Ohm as in Ohm's law, because electricity and all that, but it also comes from Olm, as in the species of salamander also known as Proteus. Finding out about Olms was particularly exciting, since I'd recently gotten into Amphibia at the time, and I had no idea that Olms were a real-life species. Also, the name Ohlmander kind of reminds me of Jormungandr. Not quite phonetically, but definitely visually. But now we're done with that, let's finish off this narration with the signature move. I've had a lot of fun making these signature move animatics for Verdurix and Conflagnid, and now Ohlmander gets to join in, with Tempest Breath, where they breathe a misty breath, covering the enemy field as rain pours down, and then they hammer the ground to call forth a massive raging thunderstorm! This move was kind of tricky to come up with at first. I didn't have much of a concept beyond the thunderstorm, and that was a must for the water electric type starter. But it was when I got the idea for the dragon's breath that it all came together. And now that we're all done with Ohlmander, let's take one last look at the Pokedex. Ohlmander, the storm lizard Pokémon. Many legends speak about Ohlmander, how they guard mountains of treasure at the bottom of the sea, and how they can cause thunderstorms by hammering on the seabed. Their misty breath is an excellent conductor of electricity, and always hangs in circles around their hoard. As such, attempting to steal from Ohlmander's hoard leads to instant electrocution. Ohlmander evolves from Salevin at level 36. It was definitely a struggle fixing the gripes I had with Ohlmander's design, but I think I pulled through in the end. I do think the perspective on the toes is a bit weird, but that's kind of inevitable when it comes to me drawing feet. I have come up with a strategy for human feet, where I draw the footprint and build on top of that, so maybe I should apply that to creature designs as well. And with that, our final set of starter evolutions is complete. Here's our final art for the G-Fin line. Sorry it took me so freaking long to get this last video out, but hopefully the wait was worth it. Let me know what you think of these guys in the comments. And hey, now that all of the final stage starters are complete, now I can ask the definitive question. Which starter would you go with on your Pokemon adventure? My favourite is the Crestus line, but I'm open to all 3 starters. I mean hey, I am the one who made them. But now that this free video project is over, I do want to share some thoughts real quick. Because as much as I've enjoyed making and sharing these starter evolutions, this whole video project has been kind of draining. I've never done 3 videos at once before, and I was hoping to get them all out in a month, but the G-Fin video got delayed pretty badly due to burnout, amongst other things. Besides, making 3 videos in July wasn't the best idea, because said July was already taken up by Art Fight. And I don't regret that, Art Fight was a lot of fun, but now I know for the future. If I'm gonna do something big for a whole month, best take a break with videos. Actually, in general, I do think I want to slow down my video production. I briefly mentioned this in the pinned comment on my Dungeon Meshi video, but yeah. Constantly making videos has started to feel not fun for me, and I want more time to do some casual drawing and hone my skills. So YouTube's not going to be much of a priority for a while, but don't worry, I'll still be uploading videos, and I'll let you know when there's something on the way in the community tab. Hopefully. So be sure to subscribe and follow my Instagram so you can keep track of that stuff more easily. But I think I've gone on long enough, so I'll end the video here. Next video is going to be an animatic, so stay tuned for that. But until then, stay hopeful, don't give up on your dreams, consider trying a different starter on your next Pokemon playthrough, and I'll see you all next time!